The Baltimore Ravens rookie class continues to impress at OTAs, and we talk about why that is a massive thing for the Baltimore Ravens prospects in 2024. All that and more coming up next year on this episode of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you, as always, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Are free and available all podcasting platforms, so in video form on YouTube and audio form, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us, subscribe, follow along, the whole 9 yards. Really appreciate all the support here on the show. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We are back here on this Thursday edition with former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. Now, Kia, was a little hectic getting on here. I was doing another interview before I hopped on with you, and I don't know if you also got that national weather alert, because it is terrible weather at the time we're recording. There was this national weather alert that full volume on my phone just went like the burr, 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 like, and I'm like, what is it? What's going on? What's going on? So I didn't know what the heck was happening. Hopefully everybody's safe from the weather. It was a tornado warning in the Baltimore area. So hectic, but it's not hectic at the NFL right now, especially because we're about to have a little lull period after mandatory minicamp concludes next week.
I think it's crazy because when the bigger picture of this weather comes about, I take it for granted because where my facility is located, we're in the northern part of Maryland and North Hartford County. And I tell you what, like just the way in which it is, like one moment it's nice, one moment it's not. It could be, in the fall, all of a sudden rain turns to sleet. In the winter, you get a little mild little dusting. Next thing you know, it's a full-on blizzard up here. Everything gets amplified up here. Thankfully, we didn't have any alerts that were that major, and the lights and everything are on. Everything is good. And yes, we are talking about OTAs. Yes, we're talking about, hey, Lamar Jackson showing up for an OTA and all the things that happen with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, so if this stream cuts out for some reason over the course of the show, Q, you will know what is going on. So you're right, OTAs still in full swing. The Ravens, I believe, had off yesterday. There was nothing doing for Baltimore. So for me, this for the Ravens is a really important time. And again, you still have mini camp coming up. You have training camp as well. But it's just a way for guys to get in the building, work with the coaches, work with their teammates, especially the newer guys as well. But the big thing, one of the big takeaways, Q, is this rookie class has been getting rave reviews so far. Whether you talk about their draft picks, the undrafted guys, feels like a lot of players are stepping up in these moments. We heard a couple days ago, Tez Walker had a great D. TJ Tampa had some great reps. Nate Wiggins is putting on some weight. And that, to me, is such a big deal that the rookie class is already showing these signs, because we know with so many vets lost, they're going to have to rely on a bunch of second-year guys, third-year guys, fourth-year guys, but also they're going to have to rely on a bunch of rookies. So for you, Q, what you've heard, maybe what you've seen, how has the rookie class in general looked so far, and what hopes do you have for them?
Yeah, obviously rookies for now are in this intensive period of trying to figure out life as a professional. I think what the Ravens do such a great job of is that to prepare yourself for on the field, you have to have the right mindset off the field. And there are some rookie seminars that they've paced them through, had some really cool speakers come in to give them some understanding as far as life as a professional and life, obviously, as a professional athlete. And I think that goes a long way to helping, yes, the off-season fire hose, throw both playbooks, offense, defense, and special teams, that fire hose at you. Oh, my God, all these plays, all these formations, all these different things at you. And, yeah, assimilate it, understand it, and then realize that, okay, now the real thing starts when training camp happens. So you have all this intensity, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, that wasn't intense. No, it wasn't. because then there comes training camp, which picks up the level of intensity because you're going to have pads on and all that. And just all eyes are going to be on you. You're the AFC North champion. You went to the AFC Championship game. And so, wow, yes, you and I, we talk about, oh, wow, the, young rookies. And they have looked good. Don't get me wrong. They have looked good. But we've sat in these seats and we've said this for the last how many years and how many times we've got on. It really doesn't matter until the pads come on. Then you evaluate in the preseason, and then it really doesn't matter till that game, whatever that game is, and let's see how you can adapt and how you can grow as a rookie.
Right. I think you don't want to take too much away from OTAs, especially because, again, I think Q1 Tuesday, they had a non-helmeted practice. Just, again, it's getting some work in, but it's not the full thing. And even when you talk about the early stages of training camp, right, those pads don't go on right away. Once those pads come on, it's okay. Now it's go time. Now the intensity is continuing to go up and up and up and up. So I still think I'm happy that it's at least full steam ahead for these guys. And we're not hearing about, oh, well, this guy really struggled doing this work today and this guy did. It feels like everything is right on track. And that to me is still good news, even though it's not like, okay, Nate Wiggins is an all-pro 2 weeks in OTAs. Like, of course, we're not saying that now.
He'll make the all Owings Mills team.
There you go. Do you know who else is on that team? Miles Boykin might be on that team.
Miles Boykin is definitely on the all Owings Mills team, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, James Crochet could be on that team.
You got who else would be on that coveted team that would be all Owings Mills?
I was saying James Crochet.
Oh my goodness. James Crochet might be in the Owings Mills Hall of Fame. That's how incredible that dude is when it comes to just young players and guys. There's some guys out there that could be free agents, could be like I said, second, third year players. But when you make that all Owings Mills team, that's a special place in the fans' hearts of coulda, woulda, shoulda, but you didn't. So you ain't trying to make the all Owings Mills team if you Nate Wiggins. But he does. He looks the part. I think Tez Walker, when I was out there watching the OTA practice that was available to the media, made some good snags. I thought the composure of, the defenders were on point, but, he stood out and stepped up. But just overall, you could just see the speed of the game. I think that's one thing that I appreciated about all of it, for those young guys. And that speaks to the coaching staff too. That speaks to, the position coaches. They got a lot on their plate. They got to get these young guys up and ready to go. When you got a franchise quarterback who's chunking up that salary, all hands are on deck to make sure, because you ain't going to get those veteran free agents. Let's just be real. You're going to get those young players. Salary is low. Those young players have a chance to either stay, get extensions, Matta BK, or they go elsewhere, Patrick Queen. But what's the one common denominator? You better learn and assimilate the system so it slows down so much that you can help the team win games. It starts in OTAs. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Good. Yeah, I think I'm in 100% agreement with you where with the way this roster is constructed, you're going to have to rely on guys on rookie deals. And I think we're seeing that changing of the guard, right? Patrick Queen to Trenton Simpson, Ronald Darby even, who signed with Jacksonville. You get Wiggins and TJ Tampa. Jadeveon Clowney goes. Well, now you have David Ajabo and Adafe Owe, Disa Isaac, Odell Beckham. Well, now it's Rashad Bateman's time. So a lot of guys on rookie contracts are going to have to contribute. But in terms of Tez Walker, Q, based off of what you see, and do you expect him? Obviously, it's very touch and go right now because we haven't seen the pads come on, haven't seen what the rest of these receivers have done in training camp. But do you see him having any sort of role? He's the biggest quote unquote jump ball threat who they drafted. Obviously, again, of another one that is familiar and has the same last name as you do. But do you expect Tez Walker to have some level of a role for them this year? Or do you think they might lean a little heavier on Nelson Aguilar and maybe give a guy like Tylan Wallace or Deontay Hardy a shot?
No, I don't. I think it is about Tez Walker getting caught up to speed. sure, I have some bias with number 83, and I definitely see what, potential he has. But yes, realism is that, yes, you have a pick that is very talented, has a good work ethic as well. And I think from that talent / work ethic, what we're seeing so far is that, yes, he has the capabilities of being very similar to what Eric Costa said, which is to be that Torrey Smith-like role. I think within this offense, you're going to need Nelson Aguilar. That's just the way it is. But man, that strategic, putting in Tez Walker in certain situations, to go along with Bateman, to go along with what Zay Flowers can do, to go along with what Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely can do. Like the sky's the limit. And so I'm not saying this in a negative. Don't get it twisted. But if you sneak Tez Walker in there, meaning that everyone else is on the radar, and now all of a sudden, like, he's 88 out the gate with some, fourth DB who, his eyes are nice and wide and say, don't get beat deep. And you got Lamar Jackson, like, bro, come on. Tez Walker is going to be a valuable big play threat.
I think he can be. And I think it's so needed for that wide receiver room where I think we know that both Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman can be 3-level receivers. But I think putting Tez Walker in a specialized role to take some pressure off of some of those guys would be really beneficial for the offense in general, for Lamar and for those wide receivers. But Q, we've heard a lot of praise. Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa. We talked about Tez Walker, Roger Rosengarten. His feet look really good, apparently. Even Sanusi Kane had a couple of interceptions on back-to-back days. But particularly with Wiggins, again, the reports says, okay, he's added some weight now. And I think that was a big concern about, is he too thin? Is he too skinny to play right now at the NFL level? But the thing that makes Nate Wiggins is his speed and his recovery speed, his ability to go one-on-one with those speedsters. And I think that's part of the reason Baltimore drafted him. For you, how does Nate Wiggins balance adding weight and getting more of a quote-unquote NFL body, but also not losing a lot of that speed that makes him him and what's given him a ton of success up to this point?
Here's what scares me, because I think when it comes to the bigger picture of training, obviously I do sports performance training. This is in my wheelhouse. The Baltimore Ravens, as a strength and conditioning coaching staff, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to know what they're going to know. I would just caution as far as size for the sake of size, because now, you're in the NFL. I think more than anything, when you look at different guys that are speedsters, they're not overly big and they kept their fluidity. That's the main thing, keeping your top end fluid-like movement to get in and out of cuts. I'm not asked to go up and be a run stuffer. I'll leave that to Marcus and Kyle and whomever else that, Arthur Millette coming off the edge or whatever. Maybe if you want me to come off the edge and I know that, hey, it's such a powerful overload that I can use my speed to get to the quarterback, fine. I can do that. I can get to Russell Wilson or Justice Field, whoever is going to be that guy. But the point I'm making it, or if it's Joe Burrow, now, just don't make that on a regular. I don't have to be the forced run block guy. I just need to be able to cover guys and do my job as far as picking the ball off. I think a gradualness to it all. He's 20 years old. There's a gradualness to it all. You don't do it all in one fell swoop. I think that'd be a very harsh thing for his body to handle. But at the same time, just naturally, his body is going to mature. Simply put, he's in that growth phase process anyway as a 20-year-old.
Right. And I think when you compare, it's not the exact same thing, but when Marcus Peters was in Baltimore, he wasn't known as that run stuffer or someone who was going up there and willingly making tackles. Now, the difference is Nate Wiggins is a lot more competitive in that aspect. It seemed like at times Marcus was just disinterested in making tackles and preserving his body. But there has to be some level of balance, because if you take away what makes you great and you're trying to add all this weight on and add all this muscle on and say, hey, let's get this NFL body, it could take away some of that speed. And even, comparing a 4.28 guy to a 4.32 guy is some level of a difference. So you have to be able to figure out where the balance is in your game, both for the player and just the organization in general. Coming up, we're going to be talking about Lamar Jackson a little bit. Nelson Aguilar had a comment that has taken the internet by storm about how cerebral Lamar Jackson is. So we'll talk about Lamar and a lot more coming up here next on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and this next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes you all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing this week. So for me, we've talked a lot about the Ravens and their depth, particularly at the safety position. And I do think that the Ravens need more there. They have Marcus Williams. They have Kyle Hamilton. That's, in my opinion, the best safety duo in the league, but you're relying on a bunch of young players outside of that. I think there are a bunch of good veteran safeties left on the free agent market. They gave Jamal Adams a call. I try to give a couple more a call and see if they can work something out with at least one guy, because if one injury happens, Marcus Williams has had an injury history these past couple of seasons. It could impact how Baltimore's safety room works, especially when they're talking about how good that defense was last year. A big part of it was because Geno Stone filled in for Marcus Williams so well. So therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems in our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We're back our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with you here on this Thursday. Again, really appreciate everybody for being here with us here on Locked On Ravens today. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today over on the Locked On Podcast Network. Peter Bukowski does a great job of giving you today's biggest sports news in general over there. So really appreciate all the support over there and, of course, over here. Now, Q, Lamar Jackson is the engine that makes this team go. And there are multiple different layers to who he is, both as a player and as a person, him with his skills on the field and his football mind. But we heard Nelson Aguilar speak to the media on Tuesday, and that was after Lamar made his triumphant return and he was back, and everybody can just be quiet about him not showing back up to OTAs, because that's exactly what he did. But Nelson Aguilar talked about how cerebral Lamar Jackson was, and just again to talk about the quote and to read it out here quickly, Nelson Aguilar said, "People don't realize how cerebral Lamar Jackson is. The conversations he has with you one-on-one about what he sees, what you may see, that's what makes a special QB special." And then he went on to talk about a story of Lamar, of where he ran a route and it didn't exactly go the way that he and Lamar planned it. Nelson Aguilar went back to the huddle, and he said that he was a better player because he went back to that huddle and talked with Lamar. Lamar walked him through what he saw, talked about how it could be more effective and where Aguilar could cut, and saying, "Oh no, well, if I get you the ball here, they can't get to the ball. Like, there's no way." So we've seen this with Lamar, where there's so much more to him than just what you see at a base surface level value on the field. He understands the game. He has he's just smart. He has a high football IQ. He understands what's going on. I think Nelson Aguilar's comments summed that up really effectively.
Yeah, I think I saw the play that he's talking about, referring to, and I think it's simple as zone versus man and where the holes are in the zone versus man. I think also where the pressure of the defense might be coming from. And I think for Lamar, he does see 2 or 3 steps ahead because he has that. It's cerebral, but it's uninhibited. And when it's uninhibited, you get the upper tier guys that we've seen over the years, the Lamar Jacksons, the good guy. I'm about to rattle off guys who are, no longer in the league. Well, maybe one. Aaron Rodgers would be one. Another one would have been Peyton Manning. Another one would have been Tom Brady. I think, Joe Burrow, Allen they both kind of have that, but the king of the kings are Patrick Mahomes, I think, and the way in which Lamar, they have that playground kind of feel, but don't get that word playground twisted as like, they're just making it up. No. What Lamar's trying to do for Nelson is get him to think even bigger and like creatively, which that's the genius of upper tier quarterback play. because the first call out of the huddle is one thing, but the defense is always trying to go up against you and stop that. You better have that second, card to pull out and really, make things happen in the NFL for those teams that want to be successful. I think, that's what Nelson was talking about.
Yeah, and it goes both ways too, because I remember, Q, especially on those Ravens Wired videos last year, there were a couple instances where Nelson Aguilar was in that huddle and saying, like, no, you throw it here, give it to Zay. I'm going to be here. That's going to free Zay up. And Lamar, throw it here, right? We saw Nelson Aguilar take on such a role last year. When he was signed, Q, there was a lot of hate from a lot of people. And I was just like, hold on, just wait. Let's see what else they do. And they signed Odell and everything. I think that calmed people down. But I think Nelson Aguilar won over a lot of Ravens fans last year. And him coming into this year, he is their unquestioned number 3 receiver at this point, behind Nelson Aguilar, or not behind Aguilar, behind himself, behind Zay Flowers, and behind Rashad Bateman. There we go. So, in my opinion, Aguilar's importance on this team. You and I talked about this last week. We talked about X factors and early contributors and what that may be. We highlighted Aguilar and said this is such a big year for him because as the number 4 last year, he operated in such a big role for them and came up with so many timely plays. I think we could see an even better year from him, assuming the targets are there and assuming that he and Lamar are able to establish the chemistry they had last year, because I thought it developed pretty quickly last year.
It did. I just think overall with the group and with Lamar learning more of the Monken nuances and making it his own, and maybe that's some of the reason why, people are like, well, a lot of the pundits are like, oh, Lamar doesn't need, OTA. No, Lamar does need OTA. Whatever group you fall in under, chemistry is the big thing. And I think for that chemistry to happen, Lamar needs to be on the same page with his receivers. He clearly is on the same page with Mark Andrews. He had some pressure in his face. He rolled to the right. Boop. There was Mark Andrews. Easy peasy. It's a situation where, yes, Mark is Mr. Reliable. And it's up to other guys to be on the same page with Lamar.
I think it's imperative. And again, whatever opinion there was on Lamar, whether it was he should be there, he shouldn't be there, I'm glad we can kind of just put it behind us now, essentially, right? As OTAs are almost over. Maybe we could put it behind us forever if this new NFLPA offseason thing passes and then OTAs go away and we're just like, we don't have to talk about OTAs ever again. So that would be a certain shift in what the conversation is around the offseason. But I think we've talked about it a bunch, Q. Him getting on the same page with Rashad Bateman and that chemistry is going to be so imperative to their offense this year. Even like Isaiah Likely, we know that Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson can show up literally on game day. No other work. If Lamar and Mark Andrews took the entire offseason off to not see each other until week 1, the chemistry would be there right away. And there'd be no question about it. But it's a little different with other guys. So I'm glad that he's there. Glad he's getting in the work. Again, it's voluntary, so that means it's not mandatory. So, again, you can do what you want. But at the end of the day, Lamar's back, and we can finally throw that out of the window. But coming up, we'll talk about some of the unwarranted Lamar hate we have seen, which is not a new conversation, unfortunately, and talk about why the conversations around him can sometimes get the way they do and what the recent ones have been. So be sure to stay tuned, plenty to talk about here on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Gametime. I'm super excited for the NBA Finals. I think it'd be awesome to go to a game too. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from receipt, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So on the Gametime app, if I were to pick a game to go to, I'd want to go to a closeout game. But since closeout games can't predict those and when a team actually closes it out, I think I'd probably just rather go to game 1, kick off the NBA Finals with a bang. Plus, in Baltimore, you got the Orioles, who are doing great. The Ravens, they're going to be kicking up in a couple of months. So be sure to get over to Gametime for that. For me, though, the Gametime app, there are a bunch of great features on the Gametime app. My favorite being last-minute deals. You can save it at 6% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and so much more. Plus, the app is really easy to use. It's a really easy experience to navigate around, which makes it really nice for me when it's talking about being all complicated. Gametime is not that at all. So other deals and features include flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Down the Gametime app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code Locked On NFL, spell LOCKED on NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Estimate tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with us here on this Thursday. Q, really appreciate you being here with me as always, and appreciate everybody listening for being with me on Locked On Ravens today. Be sure to follow along video form and audio form. Now, Q, it seems like there is this level of conversation every single year, honestly, every single month, where Lamar is just in the conversation and in the news for anything and everything. Obviously, the OTA conversation was a big one. That got plenty of conversation. But we're starting to see all this stuff come out about, oh, well, why is Lamar not there, this, that, and the other? But it's now starting to even extend beyond that of, we're still not escaping the playoff conversations. Nick Wright put out a quarterback list and didn't have Lamar on there. Actually had Caleb Williams over Lamar. Caleb Williams has not taken a snap in the NFL, by the way.
Not even a preseason. Come on now. My goodness.
Hasn't even gone through a training camp yet, and apparently he's already better than Lamar Jackson. So it's those types of conversations where, can we admit Lamar hasn't been as good as he's needed to be in the playoffs? Sure. I think we can all say that. But he's also had moments. I mean, CJ Stroud was 4 on his list, and Lamar outplayed CJ Stroud twice last year. One of those times was in the playoffs. So when it comes to Lamar, I've always felt like there's a lot of jealousy. You know, there's a lot of hate just because of the way he plays the game, and he's unconventional in the way he does things. And it seemed like we were kind of past the whole OTA conversation, and then Mike Florio comes out with the article about, oh, he's losing $750,000, and everybody's like managing Lamar's money for him. And I don't know. It has felt like as Lamar has gotten better, it's like, okay, at least some of the conversation will go away. And I think some has. And while, we're here to be fair and we'll criticize Lamar when it's fair to criticize him, we'll praise him when it's fair to praise him, a lot of this criticism, even dating back to college, has been unfair. And it seems like it's just a new thing pops out of the blue every month or two.
I just think Lamar is unconventional. Yet, when I look at the unconventionals throughout, whether it been going back to the Randall Cunningham days when he was in Philly, he was, a level of unconventional. Michael Vick, when he was in Atlanta, a level of unconventional. Steve Young, when he was down in Tampa before he went to the 49ers, level of unconventional. Like Lamar fits in those molds. Steve McNair, as much as, he had pocket presence kind of flow to his game and not necessarily, pure runner, but he had some unconventionalness to his game. I just think all of it just needs to allow the genius to flow and be. And the Nick Wrights of the world can kick rocks. Like, I don't know if he's doing it for clicks or whatever, but yeah, go out there. There's a stone. Take off your shoes and socks. Boom, kick it. Boom, there it is. And then you go back on your show and you just start with your Lamar vitriol because you kicked the rock. That's how you got to look at it.
It just, again, Caleb Williams has not played a snap in this league. You cannot tell me, nobody can tell me with a straight face that you're not putting regardless of playoff success, that you're not putting a 2-time MVP over it. I mean, and then you're also, it's not even about Lamar at that point. It's like, okay, well, there are other guys who would deserve to be on that list over. Everybody deserves to be on that list. Well, okay, not everybody, but most people deserve to be on that list over Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams might turn out to be the greatest quarterback of all time. We don't know.
Man, Trevor Lawrence deserves to be on that list before Caleb Williams. Like, good. Are you kidding me? Like he hasn't played. Like, that's just the bottom line. This is a show me league. Like, show me your brilliance and your understanding. Yours, Justin Herbert, as much as the general manager, the head coach, they cleaned house and all that. Justin Herbert, from a pure I can ball out, put up some numbers, he deserves to be a hell of a lot higher than anything that is known to the name Caleb Williams. And yes, CJ Stroud had an amazing year, but goodness gracious, we ain't crowning him either. Like, slow your roll before you recognize. Like, maybe after this year we could see something, but right now, no, that's just foolishness.
And I think too, I think it's why a lot of Ravens fans go to bat for Lamar as hard as they do, is because we just see this constantly over and over again, where it's just like, when will he get at least some level of respect? I think he has some level of it, but then you look at those lists and some of these comments and you're like, would you be treating another guy this way? Right? What's the conversation around even like a Josh Allen who hasn't made the Super Bowl? He's some level of a running quarterback, but it seems like a lot of the conversation around him, and I know they have different games. I'm not comparing Lamar to Josh Allen and saying they're the exact same player, but it just feels like since Lamar was so raw coming out of college as a passer, and he certainly needed improvement there, he's done it. Like, he's improved as a passer every single season, but it still seems like people are caught up in their college takes. And so when you talk about this coming out and that coming out, like, you try to not pay it any mind. Like, obviously it's like, okay, can we sit here and realistically say Caleb Williams will be over Lamar? No, that's ridiculous. Like, it doesn't deserve that attention. But that is why it gets attention, is because Lamar has been subjected to this, every little, it's what I've been saying, Q. His successes seem to be cast aside at times while his mistakes or his failures are magnified. And when Ravens fans, when people who support Lamar see that, it's like, well, if everybody's going to be bashing him and for not a good reason, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you're going to go to bat for him because it's not deserved. There's a deserved level of criticism, and then there's whatever the heck Lamar Jackson's been getting over the course of his career. Lamar deserves some criticism, but he also deserves a lot of praise, and it feels like the criticism outweighs the praise a lot of the time.
It's so interesting because how you say it too, it's like Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. Technically, I think I saw on X where they were talking Joe Burrow, and someone just made a comment. Maybe it was one of your tweets or something, but it was saying how, from a Joe Burrow standpoint, he's only had one game where he came from behind and played fantastic. He's really had no memorable moments, no signature moments. And I just thought that struck me funny. I think him going to the Super Bowl, he and his teammates, that catapulted him for sure. But shockingly, surprisingly, take my hat off to the Bengals, management. Like, okay, y'all gave him Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and, had a good offensive line. Good enough, I guess you should say. Could have been better, and Joe Mixon, throw him in there too. I crack up. I just think when you look at Lamar and some of the way in which they, look at a Josh Allen compared to a Lamar, they all do extremely well. Don't get me wrong. They all are deserving of, the way in which they play and move and all that. But sometimes some of the pundits and the way they present themselves with Lamar Jackson, it just strikes me a bit odd.
Yeah, and like you said, Q, this is in no way you or me or anybody like hating on any of these other quarterbacks. It's just like you're giving these quarterbacks their flowers and putting them in these lists. And I think Lamar Jackson's done more than enough to get his flowers too. I think, that's all we're saying here. Why is the criticism super loud? And then, the praise is there, but it seems like the criticism sometimes is a little louder as well. So I think for me also, Lamar, his game, you need to have the eye test factor for him as well, where like his game goes so far beyond his stats, where I think people see like, oh, he completed 19 of 20 passes or 19 of 24 passes or 15 of 21 passes. And it's, that quarterback numbers, that's not a quarterback number. But at the end of the day, I mean, you look at him play football, you watch him with your own two eyes, and there's a lot more impact that goes far beyond the box score, especially when the Ravens are blowing teams out by 30 points all the time. I think that speaks for itself as well. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on here. I know as we're getting ready to wrap up OTAs.
Yeah, no, it's all about missiletraining.com for sports and human movement performance. Check out my website there. You can check me out on WJZ, Purple Playbook, Purple Connection, Purple Pregame during the football season. And Kevin Ostriker and I, man, every week you're going to find us on this beautiful podcast right here, Locked On Ravens, chopping it up, talking all things Ravens football.
You know the drill. All the links to Q's work in the description down below, and you can see him here every single week here on Locked On Ravens. We appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, follow along video form and audio form. We'll be right back here tomorrow, rounding out the week on Locked On Ravens with more Ravens content, so be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.